Carol Vale is a proud Dungati woman and the founder of Murawin, a First Nations-led consultancy working at the intersection of culture, community and change. With more than 40 years' experience across government, community and corporate sectors, Carol is a respected leader in Indigenous engagement, social research and economic empowerment. She is also the founder of Titters in Business and was the Supply Nation's Indigenous Businesswoman of the Year in 2024. So I always start our podcast with a would you rather question.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Okay.
Would you rather be able to gift unlimited period products or ensure everyone is educated about periods before they have their first period?
That's a great question and two really good options. I think I'm going to go with the education piece because if people are educated, then they can make resources available or they can contribute to discussions that help to make resources available.
Which has me curious, where did you grow up?
So I grew up on an Aboriginal mission on the outskirts of Armidale in New South Wales. And if I think back to when when me and my cousins and we all got our first period, there's the whole very notion of women's business. So you're sort of told things, but you're not told the intricacies of the issue. And so we all knew about, I guess, periods, and it's about what our older cousins and that would tell us. But oh my God, we used material.
Yeah.
We didn't have pads. And certainly didn't have tampons, wrapping of toilet paper, all of that. I do remember our old girls cutting up nappies for us and cloth, because it was cloth nappies back then. So if people have education, then they can be more prepared. Those that have access to resources can make those resources more available to those that need them.
Education is power.
Education is powerful.
Yeah.
We've done some work in, countries like Papua New Guinea and other places like that, and some remote communities where the reusable, it's a nappy type material, sort of plastic on one side has been made available through our work with Titters in Business and Murawin, where part of our girl and women empowerment work, we've made some of those resources available to groups in Solomon Island and things like that. So I'm all for education, Rochelle.
Yeah.
Big time. Yes, please, let's make it available and give everybody some free stuff.
Yeah.
But that's not sustainable.
You can also remove the shame and stigma when you educate people.
That's right. That's
right. So I think when we look at menstrual equity and trying to ensure that menstrual equity is what we want in Australia, it's what we want around the world, but menstrual equity for us is provision of period products. It's also about the educating and educating men and women and boys and girls. Now, I know that there's women's business and there's men's business. So for us, that is not our job in our remote Indigenous communities. And to give you an understanding, we actually work with 4,000 charities. So we're not actually working with the woman who receives the products. We're working with the wraparound services that already work with them. So when we're getting product out to remote Indigenous communities, it's about how do they get them to the communities in the most respected manner.
It's really good to hear that you're working with those that are in the communities because they know their communities, they know the dynamics, they know when to make things available, when not to, all of the intricacies of how a community, how society ticks in these places. So there is some incredible, Aboriginal community controlled organisations out there that would certainly be good collaborators for you and your work that you do.
Yeah. I think back in 2017, I think we did a yarning circle through the UQ. Yep. I think there was 20 of us. Share the Dignity was very new then. Yep. And I remember saying to them, what do you need from us? And they said, we want 3 things. We want you to be able to get product out to community because ultimately helping somebody in the middle of Australia is very different to helping them in Stafford or Bundaberg, right? It is. It's much more complicated. Get the GST removed off period products, but then also help us educate the young girls who are getting their period, but without shaming us. So they said, one of the things I'll never forget one of them saying is that there used to be the auntie who would tell everybody, but that's kind of fallen to the wayside. But we don't know what to do now to make sure that the young girl doesn't not know about her period. I can say we've ticked off 1 and 2, but number 3 is not really we can't do that. We've tried to work out how to do that. And I think that is really about each community, because there's so many different languages still in different communities, right? So it's not like we could go, here's a set of assets that you can all use. It's all just so different.
Being in Arakoon for a project and being in the PCYC, and there was pallets of your products, and I was so excited to see it. And then I thought to myself, well, how are they now going to get these out to the girls? Like through what youth workers and the officers there, and so even the time of day that they were to be given out or to be sort of distributed. So yes, distributed through the schools and the community services, but at the PCYC itself was about what time do we give these out, and when do the girls come, and how are we able to give it to them at a time when they can receive it with confidence and not bring attention to themselves or not bring
shame. There's such
shame. I'm trying to explain shame to you.
I think that was probably one of our biggest lessons at Share the Dignity, is that yes, we could get the products there of period products.
Yeah.
But there was still so much shame that people wouldn't come to them. And you came to our office and packed some bags, right? Yeah. Now we send the bags on top of the period products, because the girls will come into town to get the bags and then they can fill them. Yeah. So for us, it's taken years to work out the dynamics of each different community on how they can distribute them.
Yeah. So in regards to access and equity and Aboriginal girls accessing and receiving things, if it was me, if I was one of those girls, I would want to be seeing myself in that product. So for instance, I think like the goodies in the bags are wonderful, but it's about how do you indigenize that gift so that it will be more readily, girls will come in and take it and accept it. It's never about lessening or diminishing what's in that bag, but it is about how do we indigenize it just slightly so that the girls see, oh, yep, this is for them. And sometimes it could be just like in the card I wrote Marangbu Tita or something like that. I said Yahweh Tita. So I said hello. What I said, it was hello.
What does that mean?
Well, Yahweh is hello in my language, and Tita is the girl. So I said like Yahweh Tita, and then when instead of saying goodbye, I said Marangbu. So when that girl gets that card, she said, this is so she may not know my language, but I've used two words that she will, I think I said like have a deadly day or something like that. By seeing those words, that's indigenized that card, and there's something on that even those few words, she thought, I can connect with that. So it's about finding the connection to help them access a resource, which then helps them to have a comfortable period of time.
One of the things that we've just introduced is turning our very pink bag, which is what I wanted.
Yes.
Because it's a branding thing. I wanted people to have this pink bag filled with everything that they needed, but we've just got some black bags because the communities were saying, well, the girls know and the boys know that the pink bag means that they've got their period products and their stuff in there. So we've just got 20,000 new black bags because we don't want them to stand out. It's about giving them the dignity that they deserve without it being an advertising piece, right?
Yeah.
So 11 years on, we're just always learning and always trying to be better. And at the end of the day, we want people to have access to the very basic of essentials, and it's not about showing them where it came from, right?
Yeah. There's this fine line between being proud and standing up and stepping into your womanhood, for want of a better term, doing that, and then also being able to, I guess, practice women's business. And so it is an amazing time when we're going through this with growth and going from one stage to the next. But it's also a time of you do things subtly. You do things with strong cultural parameters around you, so you don't go out there and show to the world this, and yet like we're just coming into womanhood, so what an amazing time. And it's this fine line that I guess cultural nuances that our girls have to contend with, but still be proud of their growing, I guess, in their life stages, the transitioning from one to the other and going and accessing that bag and using that bag and what's in it. And being proud of where they've come and what they're about to become.
One of the things that we have done with some of the organisations that we work with is that they will use the bags to be able to get women to come in for blood tests, breast screens, women's business things, and they kind of use them as an exchange for that. How do you feel about that?
Wonderful. Amazing idea. So I have my regular breast checks, and so every time I go and get my breast checks, I get this beautiful scarf, and they call it. So in Queensland here they call the boobs sisso,
Okay.
like that. So I get a sisso scarf, and it's beautiful, and so I know I'm going to get that. So so every 2 years I go along and get that. I mean, when I was growing up, our old girls would tell us certain things, and they would do certain things and act in certain ways. So the learning was by observation. It wasn't always about like sitting here and telling it, like that classroom setting approach. It was sort of, doing an action and sort of being told that way. You want our mob to be accessing services early, to understand their bodies, to understand what's happening. And if that means in exchange for a bag, then so be it. Because that means that you're starting to create this mindset of health and prevention, as opposed to intervention, or in some cases, not even. So the prevalence of cancers in our communities is rising. The health inequity and whole, closing the gap, in the health arena with Indigenous, non-Indigenous, it's widening, if anything. So, how do we need those incentives to get the understanding that it's not to be afraid of.
Yeah.
Look, Rochelle, when I was growing up, a lot of our old people were afraid to go to hospitals, because when they went to hospitals to die. Or when they went to hospitals, they lost their babies.
Yeah, right.
You've got all that sort of history that's connected to that. And so there's still that fear of
the system,
of systems. So it's about how do we start to break down that, and so we can bring trust, or start to build trust with our girls and their families in regards to accessing services.
It's interesting because I thought it was such a positive thing for them to be able to get something for checking up on themselves. But then other charities say, or a couple of other people have said to me, well, you don't need to incentivize them to do the things that they need.
Oh, no, I disagree. Sorry, I totally disagree.
No, and I love that, right? Because I'm always checkmating what people will say. And at the end of the day, we just want them to have product, right? And how they should be given that product or receive that product where we can just go to the shop and buy it, right? But to buy a packet of pads out in a remote Indigenous community is $20, and there's a man standing at the counter. So why not take away the barriers?
Yeah. And just because something is available doesn't mean that they will access it. It is a complex story when you think about the access and the provision of your resources. And that's just not in the rural and remote areas as well. That's in downtown Brisbane here. I mean, I lived in Armidale. Armidale is not a remote community. This is why your products are important. It's about, if they're not available to girls, then things are happening to their body, like they're bleeding, and it's showing, to be blunt, right? And so the shame that they feel, so their spirits are not as strong as they possibly could be. So what you're doing, yes, you're providing, period products, but what that means is that you're actually helping girls to be, spiritually strong, because they can walk with dignity. There you go.
Oh my God, I love that. I've never heard it that way.
Yeah, like I
feel like I want to cry right now. Spiritually strong, because they have access to period products, right?
Yeah.
I always say it's never really about the part. It's about the dignity and the lack of anxiety that you've got because you can't deal with your period.
Because if you think about that Aboriginal girl, we are more often than not the only ones there. If we're not in a remote community, if we're not in our home village, when we're outside of that, we're typically the only ones there. So the spotlight's on us already. We are being watched, we are being monitored. So your products help not to bring attention to us.
Yeah.
You don't feel as if you're second class, Rochelle.
Yeah. I grew up in Housing Commission in Brackenridge, right? We were never wealthy, but never did I realise how privileged I was.
Yeah.
I had a bathroom. I always had stuff in it, but I didn't know that.
It was probably just your family as well. Our family homes, like our home on the mission, like it was open. There's usually 4 or 5 families that access that house.
Interesting. I mean, I grew up in Housing Commission, but our neighbours were the Ballingaries, right? Like I always just had friends that had different colour skin, and it didn't mean anything to me. I never knew that there was a difference, and I didn't know racism even existed outside of my little realm of. I'll never forget being in WA and being so ignorant to hear this amazing elder woman talk about how she had to sit at the back of the bus and she was the only one at school, and ended up being a teacher, and just to sit and listen to her stories and how shocked I was that she wasn't included to play with white kids, and just that segregation. I never grew up knowing that existed. And I'm so bloody sorry that anyone had to go through that.
Yeah.
For listeners who haven't considered period equity in First Nation communities, what's the most important thing to understand?
Access, I think. So what comes with access is education. Education to understand why products are needed. It comes with the understanding of there's a cost here, and do I choose to buy the tampon, or do I choose to buy some bread for my children's table? Sometimes it's as simple as that. I would want listeners to, if you're a girl, there are organisations there that provide these services. Find them, share the dignity now. So go find it and see where you can access those products. If you are a service provider, if you're a corporate, contribute to organisations like this one to make these resources available. Because what I guess I want people to understand is that we need to be keeping our girls strong culturally and physically and health-wise. And it might be just a little tampon, but oh my goodness, it is what access to that product enables that girl to be. It enables her to play sport. It enables her to sit in a classroom, and not have to be, worried about, or be shamed that, this is leaking or something, because she's already got enough attention on herself. For me, that's the big message. Make these things accessible, and make them accessible financially and physically and culturally and geographically.
Great answer. One of the conversations I had last year was with the health department in Northern Territory, and it made it to some media where they said, oh, we've got bigger problems than supplying them with period products, because some of them don't even own shoes. Now, would you rather walk to school with no shoes on, or with no way to deal with your period?
No shoes. I'll go to school with no shoes on.
Yeah.
Okay, if you've got no shoes on, your feet are going to toughen up. If I'm in a place and my period comes and I don't have a product, and then that impact of that period is showing over my clothing, I know it's coming, then the shame that comes, and it's not about me being shamed because I'm a woman and I'm bleeding. It's shame about, well, what are others seeing here? There's the laughter, there's the snickering, there's a thing, oh my God, look at that black one. And yes, it might be, oh, look at that girl, but it'll be about, go and clean yourself up, go and do something. And it's like you're made to feel as if there's something wrong with you. And there's nothing wrong with you. It's just that you don't have the resource to deal with that issue. It's like a Band-Aid. Like if you're bleeding on a sore, you put a Band-Aid on it. It's the same
And
principle.
you can get them at school, right?
That's right.
And you can get them at the hospital, but
Exactly,
you can't get pads in Northern Territory. How do you compare both issues, though?
I see this as that, okay, I might not have shoes or the proper shoes. If my period's not being dealt with properly, then it's the multi-layered impact of that on my spirit, on my psychological well-being. That, for me, that's the bigger issue.
Yeah. And even as, I'm going to say a white privileged girl, I wouldn't have gone to school without a way to deal with my period. I would have gone to school with no shoes on because I wanted to go and play sport and I wanted to be there with my friends. I wouldn't have particularly gone for an education because that wasn't who I was. But I would never have gone if I didn't have access to period products, because I would have been so embarrassed to my core. And I would never have gone. So I would have missed out on an education. I would have missed out on the joy of being with my friends. I would have missed out on sport.
And there's a lot of girls, I got no doubt, that are not participating in things because they don't have access to that resource. Yeah. Without a doubt.
And that is 73% of Indigenous women and girls, because our Bloody Big Survey tells us.
Yep.
We go to do our Bloody Big Survey again next year. So in 2024, we had 153,000 responses. We had quite a small response from our Indigenous women. And next time we really want a bigger voice there.
Yeah.
I would love your help with how we could get a bigger voice when this is all online.
Yeah. Yep.
Because unless we hear from them, unless we can use that data to make a difference and say, you know what, even in the last survey, to have, I think it was 4,000 responses, which is great. but it's not good enough.
Yeah.
To have 73% of those women when everybody else is at 52%, I think it's a big difference.
Yeah. Can I just mention that there is a report called the Wiyani Youth Dunganini report. We just call it the June Oscar report. She did a she was our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Social Justice Commissioner several years ago. She did a national consultation, and that report is like an agenda setting document for government at the moment. And in that, health inequality and health and well-being is certainly captured in there. So there are the voices of Indigenous girls and women within that report, and they talk about, women's business. And so there would be many organisations that participated across the country in those consultations, Rochelle, and perhaps that could be a great starting point. So there's a Gender Justice Institute that's been established to lead that and everything. So there's that could be a way.
I always learn something new from you. Love it. Now, we're both part of International Women's Forum Group, which is how I met you, right?
Yes. Yeah.
How did you come about being part of that?
As you know, you have to be invited into it, and they were looking to set up the group here in Queensland. I'm not a Queenslander, but I claim to my grandkids who are, and so I got invited to be part of it here in Queensland. I really like the group. I love the group. I'm about, to go over to the conference in London in a couple of weeks. So looking forward to that. But it is a group of incredibly generous women. And what I love about it is about, they talk about women lifting women, women investing women, but it is about that whole notion of titter. Jackie Huggins actually calls it titterism. So Professor Jackie Hugson or Dr. Jackie Hugson. So titterism is about, how we be together as women, challenge each other and support each other, but lift each other when we need to as well, and make space for each other. And that's what I feel that certainly the Queensland chapter of the IWFA does.
Yeah, love it. Love being part of. The women are so clever, right? And so generous with their time and their ability. I am always questioning why I'm in a room, but when I'm in that room, I'm always just listening and learning and leaning in. So I love it.
We're all time poor, right? So we have to be very deliberate and intentional at what tables we sit at.
Yeah, absolutely. What has been the most rewarding moment in founding and growing Murawin for you?
So Murawin is a national consultancy. Certainly the works that we have or the projects we have contributed to, they have informed policy at the national level, and state level. So we're pretty excited about that. Queensland has the Our Way strategy, which is a 20-year intergenerational strategy for supporting Indigenous Queenslanders, and with the particular aim of trying to keep our kids out of the child protection and youth justice system. And so there's a lot of work to be done there. Government has a role to play, but so too do organisations just like ours, like Murawin, and Share the Dignity with Yours. And so, because you can't leave it to government. So we all do our bit, and we drive the change that needs to occur. My daughter, Rebecca, has just taken over the company. I've always been founder or co-founder, but now certainly stepping into that more advocacy advisory role of not just for Murawin, but for indeed the sector and those sectors that I, want to add my voice into and give of my lived experience and insights, I guess. So proud moment when she took over the company. That's for sure, because that's that legacy piece, and we are a first business owner within our family, and so now we're second generational business leading. So that's exciting. I mean, there are so many proud moments of Murawin. I mean, even winning the Indigenous Businesswoman of the Year and stepping up in front of my peers here in Queensland, and because it was held in Brisbane that year, and being recognised by the Indigenous business sector, that was a proud moment. You work so hard. I mean, I know you work just as I know the hours you keep. It's not a job. It truly is. That when you have a business like yours and like mine, it's a passion. It's about making a difference economically and socially.
It doesn't feel like work, though.
It doesn't feel like work, but also you don't get the luxury of, we're not going to do this today. Well, yes, we are, and we do. So I'm proud. I'm very proud of Murawin. This week, Rochelle, was the third anniversary of the passing of my late husband. And so, this past 3 years, it has been a roller coaster journey, both for my company and our family. You don't go through that sort of sorry business without, sort of really determining this is important, like what's important, what's not important.
Yeah.
And so now it's about, just living life to the fullest and being grateful for life, if nothing else. But also, and that's why I really believe in access. If you've got wisdom, if you've got knowledge, if you've got resources, then what are you going to do with it? And if you want to share it, then how do you make it accessible for others to receive it and then have the deep desire to do something with it?
What a bloody joy it's been to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on our Another Bloody Podcast. There's some really great learnings in that. Thank you for sharing.
My pleasure.